Hello everybody, I am Keaton and this is Kid Catholic Season 10, Episode 12, and I want to give a quick thank you to St. Thomas Aquinas Parish in East Lansing, Michigan for inviting me to come speak. That was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. And for hosting us as well. And then I also want to give a thank you to Sacred Heart Catholic School in Oklahoma City for inviting me to come speak as well. I'm loving doing these in-person talks again since the COVID shutdowns. If you want to invite me to come speak at your men's group, women's group, youth group, church, school, whatever it might be, please email me directly at kidcatholic1@gmail.com or go to my website, kidcatholic.com, go to the contact me page and email me from there and we can get some details worked out. So I wanted to talk about something today that a topic that I find really, really interesting and I feel like doesn't get talked about as much as it should, and that is Sedevacantism. And for a long time, I had no idea what Sedevacantism was or what it meant, but recently I've especially been doing a little bit more research on it, and what Sedevacantism is basically the sort of separate sect, a group of people who claim to be Catholic but believe that there is currently no valid pope. That's where the word comes from. Sedevacantism, the seat is empty. The seat is vacant, right? Sedevacantism. So it's sort of this belief that dating back to, it was either Pope Pius XII, some Sedevacantists say Pope Pius XII, others say it went to Pope John the 23rd, but all of them believe that the papacy either ended in 1958 or 1963 with Vatican II coming about. They believe that it ended because of modernist heresies and things that were pushed in the church that make the current popes and the popes since then not valid. However, it is important to note that A, they're not in line with Rome, and B, a lot of their arguments and a lot of their talking points fall short, and they fall short so for a multitude of reasons. And the first one I want to talk about is the fact that Sedevacantists, at the heart of this Sedevacantism belief, at this belief that the seat is currently empty, is ultimately a lack of faith, a lack of hope, a lack of trust in God. And what I mean by this is I want to look in a verse of Scripture, right? Right here in Matthew 16:18, we read, "And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it." Right? In other translations, it's the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. That's what Hades is. It's hell. So Jesus is explicitly saying right there, nothing will prevail against the church. Not even the gates of hell will prevail against the church, and the gates of hell are always trying to prevail against the church. So Sedevacantists fall short. That this is just one of many areas in which their argument doesn't work. But this is one. The idea that Jesus didn't mean what he said here. A lack of faith that what Jesus said here is true, that the gates of hell did prevail against the church, and that the Catholic Church that we used to know will never be able to get back, that is an ideology based on a lack of faith. That is what is at the core of it. Even though that may not be the intention of it, even though that may not be what they think of it, at the end of the day, that is at the core of it. And then secondly, if this were true, let's just pretend for a second that, okay, the papacy ended in 1958. How do we recover from that? How do we get the papacy back on track? Well, Pope Pius the 12th, who a lot of times, 99% of the time I'd say they believe is the last true pope. Again, some cases they believe Pope John the 23rd. Pope Pius the 12th released a document on how his successors are to be elected, and it had to do with the cardinals. It had to do with the cardinals electing his successor. And the cardinals that he put in that document, all of them have passed since then. All of them are deceased. And so, in the Sedevacantist view, there's no way to go back and get the true, quote-unquote, true papacy back, right? To, in a way, recover the papacy. There's no way to do that if the Sedevacantists were right. And so, if the Sedevacantists were right, the Catholic Church would be over. There would be no Catholic Church. There would be no seat of Peter. It is ultimately a separate sect that ends in despair. And there's this sort of idea being pushed right now that there's just traditional Catholics and Sedevacantists run together, and that's not true. Just like how there's this push right now that modernist Catholics and Protestants run together, and that's also not true, right? There are differences between them. Whether you're a traditional Catholic or a modernist Catholic, this is something that we have to acknowledge. that Sedevacantists are very, very different from your ordinary traditional Catholic, because they're sort of viewed as traditional Catholics, even though they are very, very different, right? I'd say most traditional Catholics acknowledge that Pope Francis is the true Pope, because he is. Pope Francis is the leader of the Catholic Church. Currently, it didn't end in Vatican II simply because new documents, that ecumenical council took place. And that does not mean that the see of Peter, that holy seat ended. And a lot of times, honestly, I don't blame people for mixing them with traditional Catholics, even though, again, they are very, very different. Because what Sedevacantists do is, again, they reject Vatican II, right? They reject all of its teachings, not just the fact that there is, quote, no valid pope, right? But they reject all of its teachings. So pre-Vatican II, everywhere was celebrated the Latin Mass, right? For all of the Catholic Church, the Latin Mass was celebrated universally. Well, that is the only Mass that Sedevacantists celebrate. And again, the Latin Mass is a wonderful thing. I absolutely love the Latin Mass. I've said this in my videos before, right? I am a huge fan of the Latin Mass. I think it's fantastic. So traditional Catholics, a lot of times also like the Latin Mass, right? And so people get that confused, because you may go to a church and it may have a Latin Mass, but it may be Sedevacantist and maybe not. So it may be under the Pope or it may be not. And some people don't know. But again, it's important to draw that line, to draw that difference. Because yes, traditional Catholics and Sedevacantists both like the Latin Mass. Still very, very, very different things, right? Still very different groups of people. Sedevacantists believe that there's no valid pope. They're not under the pope. They're not Catholic, even though they claim to be. While traditional Catholics are under the pope. They acknowledge that there is still a pope around. And so it's important to make that distinction, because, again, it's easy to easily get it confused when you have that sort of similarity, especially the type of Mass that is celebrated, right? The Tridentine Mass or the Latin Mass, as compared to the Mass that is commonly celebrated in America, which is the Novus Ordo Mass. And so it's just important to make that distinction. Another element of that sort of Sedevacantist argument being pushed. And when you look at it, it really doesn't make any sense, because Sedevacantists, they reject Vatican II, right? They do not acknowledge Vatican II. But they acknowledge Vatican I. And in Vatican I, it states that the seat of Peter, that the Pope, that we will have a Pope until the end of time. So it contradicts themselves, right? If they're going to just reject Vatican II but accept Vatican I, that's awfully contradictory when it says in Vatican I that the seat of Peter will be filled until the end of time. But there's also this idea being pushed that Sedevacantists are all just evil and going to hell. And again, just like with people who aren't Catholic at all, which Sedevacantists are not Catholic, they claim to be Catholic, right? But when you don't recognize the Pope, that's not Catholic, right? Just like anybody else who isn't Catholic, just like Protestants, just like people who aren't Christian, we are not one to say if someone is going to hell because of a belief. We don't know. We don't know, right? They very well could. Some of them could. Some of them could not. All of them could. All of them could not. We don't know. The only person whose job it is to judge is God, right? God is the only one who can judge. But what we do know is that the seat of Peter, the chair, the Pope, that line did not end simply because of Vatican II. The Sedevacantists belief contradicts itself in multiple places, and it is a belief of despair. Because at the end of the day, nothing can defeat the Catholic Church, right? The Catholic Church has had so many attacks in the past, right? You go back and look at the Protestant Reformation, you go back and look at the Crusades, you go back and look at even some of the mistakes that people within the Catholic Church have made, like the selling of indulgences, right? That was a very bad thing, and so what did the Catholic Church do? They got rid of it, and they survived, and they kept going, right? Nothing can beat the Catholic Church, including Vatican II, right? Nothing can trump the Catholic Church. Jesus tells us right there, right? He says not even the gates of hell will prevail against it, because this is the one true church. This is Jesus' church. This is the church founded by Jesus Christ himself. And the idea that men have the power to completely throw away Jesus' church and to never be able to go back in time and get it back, that just doesn't make sense. Because at the end of the day, we have a valid pope. We have Pope Francis. And I think that it's important for us to understand the Sedevacantist view, to learn about Sedevacantism and what it is, because it is slowly but surely becoming more popular, and at the end of the day, it is a heresy. And just like with heresies in the past, they are heresies that we can't be afraid to stand up against. Sedevacantists, a lot of them are good people who are trying to come from the right place, but again, their argument just doesn't work. So just like heresies in the past, just like a lot of heresies that are going around about the Catholic Church right now, right? I mean, for example, an idea that we worship Mary, right? There are a lot of heresies, and one of the heresies is that we do not have a valid pope, and that is what Sedevacantism is. And this is something that we need to not be afraid to stand up against, to defend our church in every aspect. To defend our church's teaching, to defend our church's doctrine, and to defend against the Sedevacantist view that the seat is somehow, because of Vatican II, empty. So, now that the topic is done, do you know what it's time for now? It's time for
the Saint of the Week!
And today's Saint of the Week is Saint Joseph, specifically Saint Joseph the Worker, because his feast day was just, as of when this video was posted, just a couple days ago on May 1st on Saturday, right? So Saint Joseph, I want to start off by explaining a little bit about his story, and then specifically what Saint Joseph the Worker, the importance of that. So Saint Joseph obviously is known as the foster father of Jesus, and it's important to make that distinction. He is the foster father of Jesus. The father of Jesus is God the Father, right? God himself. Just as Jesus is God himself. And so Saint Joseph, we don't know a lot about him. Mainly what we do know about him is what we see in the Gospels, when he does his absolute best to save Mary, to take care of Mary, to take care of Jesus, to raise Jesus up as that carpenter. And then when it gets to the time of Jesus' public ministry, Joseph isn't really brought up again. And so most theologians and scholars say that Saint Joseph died between Jesus' childhood, specifically when Jesus was 12 years old, when we read that story in the gospel, and between Jesus' public ministry. But he absolutely did his best to work hard for his family, and to save his family, right? And I want to look right here at a quote from Pope St. John Paul II, talking about this idea of Saint Joseph the Worker, right? And then the feast day that we celebrate with the Worker added. He said, "The Church considers it her task always to call attention to the dignity and rights of those who work, to condemn situations in which that dignity and those rights are violated, and to help guide social changes so as to ensure authentic progress by man and society." That quote is important because it sort of exemplifies why we have the St. Joseph the Worker feast day. And then I talked earlier, Pope Pius XII, how some people, the Sedevacantists, believe that he was the last valid pope, although we have a valid pope in Pope Francis. He said, "The Spirit flows to you and to all men from the heart of the God-man, Savior of the world. But certainly no worker was ever more completely and profoundly penetrated by it than the foster father of Jesus, who lived with him in closest intimacy and community of family life and work." And so St. Joseph exemplifies that family life and work. And I don't know about y'all, it's sort of the end of the year, right? We're getting to the end of the school year, and I am overloaded with a lot of work. And yeah, it's not the same type of work that St. Joseph did. You know, he was a carpenter. He built things. I am like doing geometry quizzes, but it still is work. It still is difficult. And so I feel like, especially in times like these, when we're struggling with our work, whether it's school, whether it's actual like work, like a job, right? We can always look through Saint Joseph the Worker for help. So Saint Joseph the Worker, pray for us. So thank you all so much for watching this week's video. Before y'all click off this video, please click the red subscribe button down below and the bell next to it. That way you get notified when I come out with a new video. Please comment any saint or topic suggestions that you might have for future videos. Please go to my website, kidcatholic.com. You can get your own Kid Catholic t-shirt. You can read about me. All my videos are up there. You can get details about my speaking engagements, which I'm very happy to give in person or online, but also in person. Since the COVID shutdowns, I've given some more in person, so I've been happy for that. Again, thank you. Got something back in my throat. Thank you to St. Thomas Aquinas Parish in East Lansing, Michigan, as well as Sacred Heart Catholic School in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, for allowing me to come and speak to you all. I had an absolute blast. Also, please check out 3 of my social medias, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The link to all 3 of those will be in the description down below. Thank you all so much for watching this week's episode. I hope that you are having an absolutely wonderful Tuesday so far, or whatever day you're watching this. This was Keaton, Kid Catholic, and I will see you all next week, and hi, Brielle.